What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller, Shane Black from the Hook'em Horn Show. Hook'emHeadlines.com, formerly for me, but did that whole spiel in the last video. Um, but back here today, I guess I sound a little, I don't know, maybe a little bit upbeat for the Longhorns today. It's uh, it's a nice day to be, talking about Longhorns basketball and things to come. Hopefully, you can hope for Texas after beating Vanderbilt today. We want to talk about the Longhorns after their 7-point win over Vanderbilt this afternoon, first round of the SEC tournament. The second round of the SEC tournament getting underway tomorrow. I think that there could be a lot of fireworks in the SEC tournament. We talked about last week a little bit some of the possibilities here, and the myriad of ideas of ways that maybe you do get three SEC teams as like the top five group in the NCAA tournament. At this point, I think you probably got two number one seeds from the SEC, and maybe another two as the two seeds. It's an exciting tournament, and it's an exciting time of year. We're in March Madness, firmly into March now. And I want to take a look at the NCAA tournament. We got a few days until Selection Sunday. This video is going to go up tomorrow morning. So Thursday morning, recording this on Wednesday night. It's a fun time of year. There's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of teams from the SEC that are going to be in the tournament. So paying attention to the SEC tournament, has a lot of stakes in what will happen, come late March and, Final Four weekend, things like that. I'll pass it over to you, Shane. I've rambled on enough. Your feelings about Texas, I have to imagine, that, we're all feeling good after the win.
Yeah, definitely. I think, conference tournament week, always, one of the most fun of the year, especially for people that follow college basketball, throughout the whole season. There's just chaos going on, more games in the NCAA tournament. And it's good when your team wins. It's fun when your team wins. I think Texas played well today on both ends of the floor. They still relied on a lot of isolation basketball in the half court, but they were able to get to the rim, attempting 34 free throws, kind of made up for not being able to knock down the 3-point ball. I think you saw what Kendall Weaver provides this team. 6 rebounds, 2 offensive, and a couple assists in 18 minutes. He was just kind of all over the place. Jason Kent, also another great game on the glass. And so I think Texas, it was, one of the first games of the season where they played like their back was against the wall, because I think they kind of knew if they lost, it was going to be it for the season. And when you look at this roster, 6 or 7 guys who have either exhausted their eligibility, or Trey Johnson, who's going pro. So a lot of these guys, their college ride could be over soon. So it seemed like they played that way. I think it's always a good sign. Trey Johnson still finished with 19 points, but only 6 of 19 from the field, and you were still able to beat a tournament team in Vanderbilt. So, if and when Trey catches fire later in this week, I think that could bode well if the rest of the team plays around him like they did today. But just a quick note, you were talking about the SEC tournament. SEC tournament as a whole, if Texas were to make a run to the finals, this would be their likely path. It would be a 10 seed Vanderbilt today, who they beat. Tomorrow is against a projected NCAA tournament 3 seed in Texas A&M. If they win that, they would play a projected NCAA tournament 2 seed in Tennessee. You win that, probably a projected 1 seed in Auburn. And then if you win that, you're into the final against either a projected 1 seed Florida or a projected 2 seed Alabama. So really just an absolute gauntlet. We can touch on further what we think Texas needs to do in the next couple of days to find themselves on the right side of the bubble come Selection Sunday.
I think that Texas probably needs 2 more to say solidly you're in. Do you think, how many wins in total do you think Texas, going into the SEC tournament, how many wins did Texas need? Is it 2, or do you think it's You have to make it to finals.
The way the bracket's set up, we know who they're playing. Obviously tomorrow they play A&M, and if they win that, they'll play Tennessee. If you win both of those games, I think you're in the field. There's no matter what the rest of the bubble does, I think it's going to be hard to leave Texas out, because that would be 3 quad 1 wins in 3 days. 2 of those would be quad 1A wins, and a team that picked up 20 wins playing in the SEC, 20 total wins before the tournament is pretty hard to ignore. If they beat A&M and lose to Tennessee, I think you're truly kind of in that 50-50 range, and you got to look around at the other teams currently on the bubble. Whether that's Indiana, Oklahoma, who plays Georgia later tonight, North Carolina, Xavier, Ohio State losing against Iowa on Wednesday was huge. You look to the Mountain West, Boise State, Colorado State. So you kind of got to look around the bubble and hope that some of these teams also fall off. I mean, right now, Joe Lunardi updated his bracket about an hour ago. So this is including the Vanderbilt game, and Texas is the first team out. So they moved up a couple spots with the win, still the first team out. And so I'm going to go ahead and assume that if they don't pick up the win tomorrow against A&M, then they're probably they're on the outside looking in. What are your thoughts?
If they had gotten that win by about 15 points, like it looked like they were going to at one point of that second half, I don't know. I don't think we need to pontificate on that, but style points do matter to a certain extent. It's hard because we always have teams that it looks like they're going to be in. If you're truly on the bubble, you never really know what the selection committee is going to do. The one thing I do know is the selection committee does tend to value these strengths of schedule. Like Texas, the problem for Texas is the recent bad losses. 15 plus point losses to Georgia and South Carolina are real anchors, I think, on the tournament resume anyway, without droning on about that. I think the thing that gave me the idea that Texas could be on track for something is that the secondary, Trey Johnson finally got some like secondary scoring. Texas's other playmakers, some of these experienced guards, scored in double figures, and stepped up when, Trey might not have been hitting as many. Trey had a decent bounce back performance, I thought, today, shooting over 35% from deep, had a decent day shooting from the field, 19 points. He's not going to be on every game. It was a big response, though, after, what was it, 0 for 14 or something like that from the field in the bad loss to OU. Let me ask you this. If Jordan Pope and let's say Jordan Pope and Tremont Mark scoring double figures for every game that Texas plays the rest of the season, how many of those games do you think Texas loses?
Your point about the secondary scorers playing well, being a huge asset, I think is valid. Looking at the games that we know would be coming up, I really don't see, even if both of them score in double digits, Texas beating A&M and Tennessee. I think stylistically it's just they're bad matchups, because those two teams just will punch you in the face for a rebound. They get after you on the defensive end of the court. All 5 guys on the floor have that absolute dog in them at all times. And this Texas team is the exact opposite, where like they show a lot of apathy. Even today, Tremont Mark had a great game. But there are times, lazy passes on offense, not getting back on defense. We see it with Jordan Pope as well sometimes too. This team likes to be flashy and score the basketball in isolation, but they don't have that toughness to beat teams like A&M and Tennessee. And granted, they did beat A&M earlier this year, so I'm not saying it can't happen again. But for them to win back-to-back games, I certainly don't think that will be the case. But let's say that they do get by A&M with Pope and Mark scoring in double digits, and then they fall to Tennessee and they end up at the first four in Dayton. I think you could win a first four game, and I think you could pull off an 11-6 upset as well. But like you mentioned earlier in the video, we just haven't seen enough sustained success to really think Texas could make the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. So I think for me right now, the ceiling for this team is the round of 32. And that's being a little generous for sure.
Even to get to the round of 32, you're going to have to, at this point, you're going to have to pick up 3 straight quad 1 or quad 2 victories, something that Texas has not done since it's been 15 months. For all the, yeah. That was weird that it doesn't feel that long. They survived today. You just got to take it, yeah.
I think the positive thing for Texas fans, and I am certainly in this camp, and I think a lot of Texas fans are as well. Certainly the casual fans are. I think the diehard Texas fans maybe stray a little bit from this, but kind of over the Rodney Terry era. So, like, today I was rooting for Texas to win, but if they lost, Terry's probably gone. I think what is going to be really unfortunate is if they don't make the tournament and Terry sticks around. Then it's going to turn from like being apathetic to like being mad. So in my mind, there are 2 outcomes for the rest of the season. It's you somehow go on like a little bit of a fairy tale run, reach the second weekend of the tournament, and you know what? Who cares? I think this sport, while it's fun to beat your rivals and win a lot of regular season games, the sport is predicated on success in March, and that's where the real fun comes around. And so if you do that, I'm all for keeping Rodney Terry around. But if you either don't make the tournament or you kind of go out the way that we think they're going to go out with a 15-point loss, whether that be to A&M or in the first round of the NCAA tournament or in Dayton, then I think Rodney Terry is likely bought out. So for me, either one of those situations I'm fine with. I've said this from the beginning when they hired Rodney Terry. You kind of had to do it, but he had a clock on his tenure, and I never thought that they were going to be able to get to the heights of what they possibly could do with Chris Beard, or hopefully another coach that they bring in. The names have been swirling, but I just don't think Rodney Terry is the right guy for the job. So
I think with OU potentially making the tournament, being the last team in from the SEC, I don't know. Arkansas is kind of on the bubble too, but I think they'll get in. I think it kind of puts more pressure on Texas to get, kind of a 5+ point victory tomorrow. I don't know. I mentioned style points, and beating A&M by 5+ probably gets you in no matter what. In a perfect world, obviously you win the SEC tournament. I just don't see that happening. I don't think Texas has the talent to make it that far. For the entire postseason right now, I think that, what are we, 5 days? Yeah, technically 5 days away from Selection Sunday. I'm going to put an over/under on it. How many teams from the SEC are like firmly in the NCAA tournament right now? I'm putting the number at 10. I believe it's 10 or 11.
I would say I would go 12.
That are firmly in. Okay.
Yep, because I would say Vanderbilt, if I have my numbers right, Vanderbilt is 11. Arkansas would be 12 for me, just because they did escape that South Carolina win. If they were to have lost today, I think that would have moved them down the bubble a little bit. But most brackets I see, they're past the first 4 and they're into, that next 4 for the first 4 buys position. And then I think squarely on the bubble, Oklahoma and Texas. That would be 13, 14. And then clearly out would be LSU and South Carolina. So I think you could also, I think it's fair to say 11 teams are definitely in. Arkansas is in that next tier. Texas and Oklahoma are squarely on the bubble. And then South Carolina and LSU are out. I think you could argue that. But, I mean, there's no chance Vanderbilt doesn't make it. There's no chance Georgia doesn't make it.
Right.
And those are the only other 2 who you could even potentially have a conversation about.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, Arkansas, I don't really have them on the bubble too much. If you're one of the last, or basically if you're not in a playing game this far in to March, I think you're you're probably pretty safe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
for OU, yeah, OU's a coin flip for me at the moment. We'll see how their SEC tournament fortunes.
Like we said, there's going to be at least 12 SEC teams in, probably 13, and Texas is hoping that number will be 14. And once you get to that big number, like setting records, does the NCAA, does the selection committee want to reward a Texas team that's shown, it has some high peaks, but some low valleys as well? Or do they want to, give that extra bid to Xavier in the Big East or UNC in the ACC? Because when you look at those conferences who historically have been very good at hoops, they're only going to get, 3, 4 teams in. So I think that could hurt Texas, that although they do play in what is shaping up to be, the best on paper conference in college basketball history, I think being the 14th team in that conference could hurt, because I don't know if the selection committee would want to deal with some blowback that they're including 14 SEC teams in and say only 4 ACC teams and 4 Big East teams.
There's a situation where the ACC gets like 3. I don't think I ever thought I would see the day where the SEC has 10 more teams in the NCAA tournament than, and we're talking about like baseball, sure. Even then, the ACC's really got a lot of powerful programs that are consistently in the postseason. Let me paint this picture for you though. If this is turning into like I guess just a selection conversation for for a few days from now. Tomorrow, let's say that Wake Forest beats Carolina in the ACC tournament.
That'd be big.
And Colorado State wins the Mountain West. Boise State wins maybe a game or two, I would imagine. You know what? Yeah, the Mountain West, right? It right now is sitting about even keeled with the ACC in terms of the number of teams that could get in, because I think New Mexico's in no matter what from the Mountain West. I think San Diego State might be, but you still got Boise State, Utah State, and Colorado State. And I have a hard time seeing Colorado State. Man, I think that'd be a huge snub if they didn't get in.
Yeah, they're one of the hottest teams in the country right now. I think in the Mountain West, you're hoping that in the quarterfinals, San Diego State knocks off Boise State, because right now San Diego State has a stronger resume and they're probably like 5 or 6 spots ahead of Boise State. And if they are able to beat Boise State, probably just knock the Broncos out completely. So I think as a Texas fan, that's kind of what you're hoping for.
It doesn't help Texas that there's so many top heavy conference bubble teams. Like, I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but like the fact that you have so many teams from the ACC, Mountain West, not the Big East, but like the A10, another example, where it's like, there's 2 or 3 teams from each of those conferences that are on the bubble, but they also all have like 12 plus wins in conference play.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough because when they're, some of the teams they're beating are also other bubble teams, and some of them are like like 10 seeds.
Yep.
We're in a situation where we have, basically, there's 50 quad 1 and quad 2 teams if you wanted to break it out that way, right? Tier 1 and tier 2. Let's use it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think this year you've got 35 tier 2 and 15. Yeah, let's say 5 or 6 tier 1.5, and you got a top 10 that are like premier squads. Because I don't know if there's a clear national title favorite. I don't think so. But it's it'd be hard for me saying that like at this point that like Gonzaga is going to win the title.
Yeah.
Or that, even Texas Tech that they'll win the title. Yes, I think that they're a really good team. But like, do I think they're going to beat Duke, Houston, Tennessee, Alabama consistently? Auburn, Duke. I already said Duke. Anyway, no. I'm interested to see if there's any kind of, late tournament run or like late season runs here. I don't think we're going to see that from the SEC, but maybe the Big 12. The ACC probably is the most likely candidate to have more of a dark horse team win. Um, are there any teams that you could see pulling off, an NC State, let's say like an NC State last year type run that really could surprise some people?
That's a good question. I think just kind of, the bubble conversation as a whole and you kind of mentioned it there, but talking about the ACC that, besides Duke, it's pretty open. I think the unfortunate thing about Texas on the bubble is that while they are going to have great opportunities to pick up quad one wins, one loss and you're done. Whereas you look at a team like Xavier, who does play Marquette tomorrow, but you look at a team like North Carolina, who can stack wins, even though they're not going to be the greatest quality wins. They are probably going to cruise into the ACC tournament semifinals at least. But I think in the SEC, I like Mississippi State. I've liked Mississippi State Did they win? Please tell me they beat LSU. I didn't even see.
Last I checked, they were crushing LSU.
Okay, good. I was gonna say if I said that and then they just lost tonight, I'd be like, wow. But I like Josh Hubbard. I think having guards who can score like that in March is huge. RJ Melendez, another pure scorer. They get Missouri on Thursday in the second round, and if they win that, sets up a game against Florida, which would be high flying up and down the court. So I kind of agree with you that the SEC probably stays more chalk, but I do like Mississippi State and think they can excel in a tournament setting, whether that be the SEC tournament or the NCAA tournament. I think if you're looking towards the Big Ten, a team that could make a run,
or
Illinois. So Illinois beating Purdue last Friday was very impressive, but they are just inconsistent because they rely on Yakachonis and Riley, some of these freshmen. And so I typically tend to stay away from true freshmen in tournament settings. Oregon as an 8 seed is interesting. I think Indiana's probably firmly in the tournament. Not firmly, but probably in. I don't know if you'd agree with that. But hopefully Oregon can beat them. And then if they do, that would set up a great 1-8 matchup against Michigan State. And I think the winner of that could have a lot to say with who cuts down the nets on Sunday. So, give me a dark horse Oregon. I'll take Dana Altman. Always seems to put it together in tournament settings, one and done type settings, and multi-team events like he did earlier this year in November.
Always look at teams that do well in those neutral site games.
Yep.
It shows your ability to step up, tight preparation, beginning, kind of bookmark for the postseason. And the one team that does stick out to me, I've been high on them all season. It wouldn't really be a surprise, but as long as they can stay healthy, I think Iowa State can win some games. Can win some more games this week in the Big 12 tournament tomorrow. They have an intriguing matchup against Richie Saunders, guard, scoring 16 a game, something like that in BYU. Baylor, I never know what to think about Baylor. I think I said this in our video last week. I think that VJ Edgecombe is a good player and a very good athlete. I think against better defensive teams, he can struggle. I don't see his game developing the way that I think a lot of NBA scouts thought it would offensively. Other than that, Colorado surprised some people, I think, beating West Virginia and TCU. So sometimes you just get these teams that come out of nowhere, man. It just doesn't make sense. Like, you'll have undervalued talents that can finally, find a rhythm. And, you just give it to the hot hand, Dylan DeSue, from a couple of postseasons. Maybe Jordan Pope can do what he did against New Orleans in every game.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But I think Iowa State, Iowa State has been my non-sexy pick, just like a safe pick of like a team that can make a run. But they're number 12. I don't think there's a whole lot of people out there that are like really counting them out. But I'll dig into the American because they're playing right next to here. You know what? Give me some East Carolina.
This is basketball, not baseball.
Or football. That's my dad played football there. You know what? No, let's not turn this into a joke. I get the team that I actually think potentially could make a run in the American. Potentially, take it potentially. Wichita State.
Yeah, I'd consider them the second best team in the conference. Are they the 2 seed?
They're the 8 seed.
Really?
I think, yeah.
I think
the American has some okay teams in the middle tier of the conference. I'm not going to say good, but okay. I think North Texas and Memphis are the clear best.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't know. UAB's pretty. I might actually put UAB above UNT, but no. UNT's pretty good.
When it comes to the American, if you're a Texas fan, you just gotta hope Memphis wins it, because if not, then someone's stealing the bid. So
yeah, UNT's probably in no matter what.
UNT, North Texas?
I think so. Yeah.
No way.
Am I?
Unless I've totally missed out on.
Oh no, yeah, I'm wrong about that. I thought they were. I was looking at. Maybe I was running my own numbers on that. I think North Texas is hella undervalued though.
Yeah, I got them. They're not 68 on Bart Torvik.
Were they at Ken Palm? I mean, check and see on that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 68 on Ken Palm. I don't know if they're the same in both. I think North Texas is very undervalued.
Yeah.
They
just don't have any.
They don't have any sexy wins on their resume. They have a bunch of close losses and semi-impressive wins, but their consistency, and solid perimeter defense. They're the type of team that, with the right path, I think could win a game or two in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, they're gonna have to win the American first, and at that point, if they do, then they will. They'll be churning. They'll be hot. So
let me adjust what I'm saying here. North Texas, I think, could be the team that surprises some people if they go on a run in general. I think Wichita State is a good enough team. They have enough good scores. I think Vasquez put up like 30 points today in their win, or maybe that was yesterday. But Wichita State, solid squad. I think North Texas undervalued. I mean, anytime you're an American team and with how bad that conference has been this year, they've lost a lot of their bigger programs in the last few years. But with how bad that conference has been, but compared to usual, am I wrong that usually the American gets in 4 or 5 teams?
Maybe the old American, but
yeah, I guess without
so, like SMU hasn't been that great lately, and who else used to be in the conference? I think they both FAU, Houston.
Yeah.
So Houston would always be in, but Memphis has been like an 8 seed a couple times in the past 5 or so years, and
Wichita State's usually better.
Yeah, so I think they're probably like a three bid league.
Yeah, Charlotte hasn't been as good as they were in the 2000s in terms of just like one of the mid-major schools in the tournament conversation. But
USF was good last year, but I don't think they were in the American last year, or were they?
Yeah, USF's been in the they've been in the American for a little while.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, no, I think that North Texas would be a school. Anyway, I've talked enough about UNT. I think for the SEC, I want to bring this back to center here. And we can round out on this. Mm-hmm. I do have a few more questions, to kind of give some, not some bold thoughts, but, get the juice going until I've got something to cap off at the end, at the very end of this too. Really kind of get it going for Selection Sunday and what's to come for March Madness. One, who do you think, straight up, who do you think takes the SEC tournament among the top teams?
Auburn. I think they're the best team in the conference, and I think losing to Alabama will, if they hadn't, yeah, I think I probably would have picked them regardless, because they would have beaten Alabama. Then it's like, wow, this team really can't lose. And now that they lost Alabama, I'm like, wow, they got a chip on their shoulder. So I'm going on.
Or just kind of dumbfounding things in rivalry, like them losing to Georgia, even though it was on the road, was still pretty surprising. Georgia's a good team,
yeah,
but they're not on Florida. I think we agree that Florida is one of the top teams. Tennessee is a good team, but you don't expect Florida to, even on the road, to go in and lose by 20. And then
when you only have 4 losses, it's hard to. It's like you're gonna. I mean, I'm not sure. You can give them some grace on the Tennessee loss is weird. I will admit that, but 27-4 is, they're one of the best teams in the country, no doubt.
And then this might be a tougher question because it's hard to keep up with everything that's happening over 36 games the last few days. Which team that's already been knocked out of the conference tournaments do you think can, really not surprise some people, but really pull it together? And
I'm trying to think who has been knocked out that we know is going to make the tournament. Vandy.
Yeah. Vanderbilt.
And no one. Ohio
Virginia.
State.
West Virginia, probably.
West Virginia, Ohio State, probably. Vanderbilt.
Let's see.
ACC, no one. Big East, no one. So it'd have to be one of those 3. I've never liked Vanderbilt, honestly. I've never been a big fan of Vandy this season. I think they're kind of smoke and mirrors.
Okay.
West Virginia was in the middle of January when Javon Small was playing really well. I was like, this could be like a sneaky 6 seed. And then they kind of tanked down the stretch, which is why they're in the position that they are. They'll probably be like a 9. But I think Darren DeVries is a really good coach, and, fully healthy, I think they are a really good squad. Unfortunately, I don't think Tucker DeVries is coming back because I stopped keeping up with his health midway through Big 12 play, because it was one of those things where they would never give a timetable, and every time you tune in a West Virginia game, it'd be like, he could be coming back soon, and then he hasn't played since December 6th. So losing your best or second best player certainly hurts, and I don't think they've really recovered from that. But Small is the player that can kind of put a team on his back in March. So I think they could be interesting, and them being a 9 or a 10 seed could pull off a mini upset, and then potentially play a 1 or a 2 seed pretty tough.
Yeah, I was actually going to go West Virginia with my answer there. I had a little bit of bias toward Javon Small. He was at Oklahoma State last year, and unfortunately, we couldn't hang on to him. But I guess I'll go with a bit of a cheating answer for this. I'll go St. Mary's.
Yeah.
So do I legitimately think the Gales are going to win a national title? Probably not. Do I think that with the right path, they could win 2-3 games in the tournament? Yeah. I think that St. Mary's has faced more adversity and passed more quad 1 tests this season. I might be wrong about this. I think that St. Mary's has more quad 1 and quad 2 wins this season than they've had since the mid 2010s. Just in quantity. I'll have to go back and check that just to be sure. But they have 11 quad 1, quad 2 wins this season.
Mm-hmm. Also a byproduct of the WCC having one of its better years this year. Just gives you more opportunity.
Yeah, pretty much. That I would chalk it up to that. So yeah, looks like since 2016, at least from I would have to do some validation on that. But yeah, I mean, again, they've been pretty good at neutral sites too. I think that Gonzaga is a decent team, and I think that you think that Gonzaga being like a 4 seed is too high.
Yes.
Okay, because aren't they like number 11 right now?
So the metrics love them. They're not number 11 in the AP poll. Maybe they are.
Sorry. Sorry. Yeah.
KenPom and Torvik and all the metrics typically love Gonzaga. I don't buy it. I think they've put up too many stinkers this year, if I'm being, quite honest. They have 2 like
their blowout losses. Wins over quad 3 teams is doing a lot of heavy lifting on their.
Yeah, this isn't a Gonzaga team where I'm like,
all right, analytics.
They're gonna challenge for a title. I'm not really worried about that. They do have a lot of talent. I'm a big Nemhard guy, but
you're right. There's not much on the resume here that's really blowing me away beside, occasional win over St. Mary's, because their best win otherwise was, that blowout win in the season opener over Baylor, but Baylor hasn't been what a lot of us thought they were, and they were still trying to figure things out. And I don't know. Anyway, a bunch of double-digit wins over San Francisco isn't gonna get you very far, I think, in the eyes of in the eyes of the selection committee. Okay. Last thing. Give me 2 bold predictions for the SEC tournament.
Ooh. I'll go Mississippi State makes a run to the semifinals. I think they clip Missouri and then they clip Florida, but they fall to Alabama. Selfishly, I just want to see an Alabama-Auburn rematch. I also think that it would be tough for Mississippi State to win 4 games in 4 days, especially with that level of competition. And this isn't that bold of a prediction. And if you've made it this far, I'm going to preemptively apologize because you're probably a big Texas basketball fan, as am I. But I think A&M is going to beat the brakes off Texas on Thursday. I think the Rodney Terry era is going to end with like a 20-point loss to A&M. I think just stylistically, A&M is going to come out, is going to punch him in the mouth. Texas having just played the day before, sometimes that can be good, but for this team, when you come out against an A&M team that not only is more hungry than you, which they shouldn't be, given the state of both programs, but they're going to be fresher too. I think they're going to get on Texas early, and I think they're going to bury them. So maybe not super bold, but kind of tying in the whole video together. And if and when that does happen, and Rodney Terry probably gets fired, I'm sure we'll come back with another video on that as well. So what about you? What are you thinking? Bold predictions for Nashville?
This one's really bold. I think that I say I think, and I mean, I think it sounds like I'm making it like a firm, like this is my belief stance. I'm gonna go that. So my first one, I'm gonna say that Arkansas beats Ole Miss tomorrow by 15 plus.
Ooh.
I think that Arkansas can play well when they're actually like pushing the pace a little bit, and there is some cohesion with the backcourt.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if they had Boogie Flint at this point, they would probably be in better position, but injuries have really wreaked havoc on their season. That said, again, we'll see. John Calipari's postseason resume though recently hasn't done much to inspire much. Anyway, my second, I've been flip-flopping here. My second is that whatever team wins the SEC tournament, because who did I picked Florida? Yeah. I think whatever team wins the SEC tournament, especially if it's Florida or Tennessee, is out of the NCAA tournament by the Sweet 16. I know that's a little bit.
I don't hate that.
I know that's kind of going out a little bit. I think that it's harder to say for Florida, but if it's Auburn or Alabama that wins, I feel less certain about that prediction. But if it's Florida or Tennessee, they've just been so prone to just like the occasional and we've seen what Rick Barnes teams do in the postseason. You're usually good for a couple of wins, but eventually the offense just kind of gives out against some of the better teams. I mean, Tennessee was a couple of possessions away from losing to Texas, like to a pretty mediocre Texas team at the round of 32 last year. Yeah, I feel good about that prediction, honestly. At least in terms of being a bold prediction. All right.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't think I have much else. We're doing midweek, mid-conference tournament time, so a lot of the conversation is just about the bubble.
Yeah. Next couple days for sure.
Yeah. Is there, beside Texas, there any team you're rooting for on the bubble?
Well, as a Colorado State alum.
Well, yeah, that's fair. That's a dumb question. Sorry.
I'm pulling. No, it's okay. I'm pulling for the Rams, and honestly, this is probably the first time that my allegiance, growing up, since I was born a Texas fan, went to Colorado State. Always have rooted for Texas over. I mean, I was at the football game. Obviously, I was rooting for the Horns when they played in basketball in the first round last year. That was weird. I was rooting for the Horns though. But now this Texas team just inspires no confidence. And like I've said throughout the video, I think Rodney Terry getting fired would be a good thing overall for the program. So if it comes down to a bubble spot, I'm rooting for the Rams over the Horns. So don't come after me. But that's kind of my thoughts on it. I'm just kind of tired of watching this Texas team, if I'm being honest. At least baseball's humming. So
yeah, 14 straight.
Yeah. Basketball's not done yet, though. I mean, we could look up, 2.5 weeks from now, and Rodney Terry could be cutting down the nets going to the Final Four. That's possible. It is certainly a possibility.
It's
not out of the question. There are some teams like LSU, South Carolina, out of the question. There's 0% chance they can make the Final Four. Texas, there is at least some chance they can make the Final Four. And so.
Well, I'll say it too. I mean, at this point, I don't know. Is there anything that, I mean, I know that last weekend didn't go particularly well for the Longhorns women, but is there anything that Rodney Terry can do at this point to rally more fanfare around the men's program than for the postseason, the women's basketball team?
Comparatively, no, but I think if he reaches the second weekend, it'll be the sentiment
that's a dumb question because, if you make it far enough in March Madness, everyone's going to care.
Yeah, and so I don't think just because of what the women's team is probably going to do and what they have done this season, that there'll be more fanfare for the men, unless they both make the Elite Eight, then I think just by the nature of the popularity of the men's game compared to the women's game, the men will have more hype. But I think if you don't compare them and you look specifically at Rodney Terry in Texas, if he were to make the second weekend, then, me included, I'll be like, I don't think he's the best coach, but we went through the Shaka Smart years where we didn't win a tournament game. And now in the year Rodney Terry took over for Beard, they made the Elite Eight. Last year, they won a game as a 7 seed and took a 2 seed at Tennessee to the brink. And then assuming he makes a Sweet 16, you say, Well, he just pulled off 2 upsets to make the Sweet 16. So maybe this guy can just win in March. Who knows? So if that does happen, it's like kind of some voodoo magic. And you just got to chalk it up to like, hey, well, I'll deal with you November through February if you're going to do this every March. That's kind of my feelings on that. But I digress because I don't think that's going to happen. But
Yeah, this team reminds me of the Shaka Smart NIT championship team.
yeah.
You have a better the star is better. He's gonna, but man, how many of those Shaka Smart teams had like multiple NBA players and couldn't do anything?
Yeah, I think it a little different because a lot of his NBA guys were like true centers.
It's tough with the Jackson Hayes team because Jackson Hayes was an early pick,
Yeah.
and Jericho Sims is a serviceable backup, like reserve big man in the NBA.
I think if you flipped, like if you replace,
Dude, we need one of those. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. I know what you're gonna say. We need one of those guys on this team. I think if you, but what I was gonna say, I think if you replaced Trey Johnson with one of those guys, this team would be like below 500.
Trey Johnson's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yes, and that's because Roddy Terry is a poor coach. Before we sign off, you watched the game today. What was going on with Vandy was getting some backcourt pressure when they were doing some fouling like under 5 minutes, and then Roddy Terry calls a timeout, and what he goes to like a couple possessions in a row is Caden Shedrick being option one on the inbounds on the full court. Like I understand Shedrick was ideally he catches the ball and then passes it back to Pope who steps in, but they're going to foul him right when he catches it. So I don't understand that it doesn't make any sense to me. It was crazy. And if I see Jason Kent shoot another free throw, dude, I'm gonna lose it. I'm going to lose it. But he had a good game though in general. So
10 rebound. That's my like Jason. I think a lot of people like Jason Kent played one of his best like paint games of the season. That sounds confusing, but like he really. He only scored him and Kendall Weaver 2 points, 16 rebounds, but like they had like Dennis Rodman stat line. That type of impact. I'm a big Dennis Rodman like Bulls fan. From when I covered them and like during the pandemic and everything, The Last Dance and like before then too. But man, their defense, their transition, their rebounding. But yeah, the A&M's more physical and experienced. Vanderbilt really only has Jalen Carey. And, A&M's got more depth. And I just have a hard time seeing us against that backcourt duo. That's one of the, you said matchups, and I think Mark might have another big game tomorrow. Pope's been kind of hot and cold since the start of SEC play. I think Kaluma is going to have to step up and have a massive game tomorrow if Texas is gonna get through this. What was your original question?
About Shedrick, the inbounds play going to Shedrick.
So there are two things. One is Rodney Terry. I'd have to pull up the synergy numbers again from I used to run those pretty often with like some of my post game coverage and the advanced analytics stuff, like those breakdowns. Anyway, the synergy stats last year showed this like really heavy, not forecast, but like uphill trend for Rodney Terry to run like kind of high elbow pick and rolls, since we didn't really have anyone that could facilitate inside the arc. Or like we don't run that many high ball screens compared to what you would think. I mean, we do run a lot of high ball screens, but like we're not very effective in the pick and roll.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I don't know how much of that is losing Dylan Mitchell, but I or just not having a good big man, honestly, that like physically can hold up. I think Shedrick like is like a high effort player, and I think he like fundamentally is solid, but like he's not like a great free throw shooter, and which obviously I how many of those inbounds do we give to Trey Johnson directly?
Not enough.
I here's my issue. So let me pull up the
Texas just can't handle pressure. But I mean, it's almost a moot point. Like, I do appreciate discussing it, but like, this team is going to play 40 more minutes, and then they're going to be gone from our life. So
here, let me pull up this. So in the final 10 minutes of games, oh man, there's so much data here that is just so telling. Okay. So in the last 10 minutes of here's what I was looking for. In the last 10 minutes of games this season, Trey Johnson leads the team with 1.4 turnovers per game in SEC play. Second most is Julian Larry at 0.9. I don't know what it is with RT. He just does not seem to like to give a lot. Like I get it. Like almost I feel like I'm thinking like Steve Sarkisian like is a little hesitant with Arch Manning.
mm-hmm.
Like not to like bring up football into this comparison, but like I think that for Trey Johnson, I just don't like he has it's not fair because he does so much to carry this team anyway that like eventually you're gonna have a bad play. He does have a good amount of turnovers.
Yeah, he just tries to do a little too much. And I think,
yeah. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. It's like I said, he's tremendous for this team, but yeah, when you have this much pressure put on you, he's taking so and let me put it in this context too. He's second on the team in assists in the final 10 minutes of games in SEC play. He has almost double the amount of points, 11 points per game. 11 points per game in SEC play in the final 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some games
that's also why he has the most turnovers. I mean, he just has the ball in his hands. So
yeah, and eventually that pressure builds up. And here's the number one thing: we just clear out. Texas has by far the largest frequency of ISO possessions in the second half in the SEC this season.
Yep, because the coach is not good. So but yeah, all I'll say is like we could go on forever, but this team is going to play 40 more minutes of basketball, and then I'm never going to think about them again. So because Roddy Terry will be gone, Trey Johnson will be in the league, and I'll be excited that Kendall Weaver and Devin Pryor are coming back, and everyone else can do whatever. But that's kind of what this team has. It just made me pretty apathetic towards them. But
yeah, it's
I wouldn't get too bogged down in what's going on because it's going to be irrelevant in about 24 hours.
And it sucks too because there's some guys on this team that I really like. Like I think Kaluma's a really solid player. I think that Nick Cody has a lot of upside, and I don't think that they're really ever going to see. I mean, obviously Kaluma's out of eligibility, but I don't think they're really going to see that here. And like I think with a better coach, Kaluma could have like really worked his way into being like maybe like a late second round NBA draft pick.
Yeah, he's got the body.
Yeah. And at the beginning of the season, anyway. And I guess to round this whole thing out, my answer to you would be that Shedrick has been the guy that we've utilized most often in the high pick and roll. When we do run it, like actually do run structured plays like that. This is what I would say is how many times have you seen this season when we have like a couple of possessions where like a high ball screen or like a backdoor cut from, like the elbow with an experienced player, say, like Kaluma finds someone or Larry or Kent finds someone like that. How many more possessions do you see Terry run that exact same play and not try to? Okay, I'm really. I don't mean to sidetrack.
I think we're talking about different things. I'm talking about when we're inbounding against a full court press and he has Shedrick run to the ball,
Right.
not in the half court.
Let me finish out the point here a little bit. And maybe it is not making sense 100%. My brain is a little fried from today. Full day of work and trying to stay entertained with basketball too. We'll do that. It's fun, but I think it all comes back to the idea that Rodney Terry has really struggled to go to lead his team in these critical moments of these games. And we have a freshman that's trying to do it instead. When I say that, we're putting players in bad positions to succeed, I don't think that reflects any more so than the big men that are just getting cooked on the court or like at center court. Like do you remember talking about last week when Caden Shedrick, it wasn't even Shedrick, but like that like Shedrick was chasing down. Was that against Arkansas that we lost? I can't remember who that was against.
Oh yes. Yeah. Yep. Yes.
So
because Jordan Pope was just standing around.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think that he has many other players that he trusts in these situations. I guess that's what I'm trying to build up to. I had some gaps there, but
yeah, I think that's his fault though, because there's talent. This team has talent. It's Rodney Terry's fault. He's just not a good coach. He's a fine assistant coach. I feel bad. Big on basketball on Twitter. Who's a good Texas basketball follow. He made a good point. Guys like Steve McLean and Brandon Chappell, like all these guys who
some of the coaches
move their families. Chris Beard let them down. And I think that's what the Texas basketball the past 4 years is the takeaway. Chris Beard let down the program, and unfortunately that sucks. But it put the program back 5 years, and I don't feel too bad for Rodney Terry because he's walking away with $15 million. But he's just not the right guy. He's not a good basketball coach. Couldn't do it at the lower level.
I think that Terry still benefits from this pretty good because he showed he can recruit.
Yeah,
that's definitely one thing. John Clark, borderline 5-star that we signed. We'll see what happens there. But you say that, and then you obviously had like the Ron Holland situation, like AJ Johnson.
AJ Johnson, yeah. Terry will land on his feet if he wants like an associate head coach at like a lower level power 4. He'll be able to get it. So
I think you can get an assistant coach job at most schools. I don't, but
yeah. Just whoever, whether it be with Jerome Tang or whoever he has connections with. So
yeah, I think that Terry is best served as like an assistant coach, associate head coach. He's shown that he can handle that role, but much more than that is tough.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, all right. Last thing. Okay. Actually, I did have one more question that I think would. Okay. Speaking of Ron Holland, I did want to ask this because we're going to get more into NBA draft here in a couple of months. But while we're at it, Ron Holland went to the Pistons last year, or in the draft last year in the lottery. The 5th overall? Let me look that up to confirm.
That sounds right.
Yes, 5th overall. Do you think that Trey Johnson goes higher or lower than Ron Holland in the lottery for 2025?
I'll say lower, just because I think 3 guys that are going to go above him in Flag, Bailey, and Harper, and then a lot of people are talking themselves into Edgecombe. And just based on the numbers, the draft is strong. Personally, I think Johnson is the 3rd best player in the draft, but based on the numbers, I would say lower. He would have been the number 1 overall pick if he was with the class last year. So just unfortunate timing for him. It may work out better in the long run.
This is a very strong class. Not like the best we've ever seen, but it is a strong one.
Yeah.
I think probably akin to maybe the 2020 class. I think you could get a couple of stars out of this one.
Yeah. Or,
you got some injury-prone guys.
2017
ball types.
Yeah, 2017 with that was the Luca, right?
Luca Trey, yeah.
Luca Trey and Shea. That turned out to be a dang good class.
Yeah, Shea ended up being the best of that group. Weird to say looking back on it, but yeah, no, hands down at the moment, clear top dog there. Granted, it's not like Luca's a bad player. He's only like a couple spots below that in the tier of like these all NBA first, second teamers at guard. Okay, and then do you think VJ Edgecombe? Do you buy the hype? I don't know.
Not
dude,
the biggest.
I really sound like I hate this guy.
No, I'm on your side. I'm on your side with that. I think people will talk themselves into him over Trey because I think he is more toolsy, where Trey is just like an absurd level scorer. Edgecombe has more round to his game, but I'm with you. Like certainly deserved of a top 10 pick. But I don't think he should be towards the top 5. I think it should be like towards the back half of the top 10 or back half of the lottery. There's just too many Baylor games that I throw on that he's just inconsistent and down the stretch, doesn't step up when they need him to. So is that his fault? Who knows? It's tough with these guys because they are all so young, but I agree with you that Edgecombe probably a little overvalued by the national media and the NBA draft gurus.
I find him as an underdeveloped. I've seen this comparison at like a high level before. I find him as an underdeveloped Victor Oladipo. He's bigger, but Oladipo before the
injuries.
before the knee injuries.
I don't hate that.
I'm a Pacers fan, so like I watched Oladipo closely. He was a really, really, really good two-way guard.
Yeah. Super athlete, underrated athlete. Like he had burst.
Yeah, was he a 2-3-time All-Star?
He had crazy burst.
Yeah, and could defend pretty much anyone on the perimeter. I mean,
I think if Edgecombe has Oladipo career, that's probably a success.
Yeah, but I put the asterisk there of the offensive game isn't like Oladipo was like a pretty good secondary playmaker. And like Edgecombe, I think in the NBA, I've seen the Jalen Green comparisons. I don't buy that.
No, different players.
Jalen Green, like at his best, is like
30-point per game guy.
Yeah, is like one of the better like pure bucket getters and athletic scorers of this generation of young shooting guards. Like and Edgecombe at his best, I don't even know what that is yet.
Yeah,
offensively. So anyway,
that's true.
All right, we'll have plenty of time for these other long draft conversations.
Yeah, it'll be a fun draft though because of the talent for sure.
Yeah, NBA's getting a lot of young talent. It's an exciting time to see a lot of that getting restored with Cooper Flagg in the future, Wemby. I mean, you got guys like hopefully Ja stays on the court for a while, but old Anthony Edwards coming into his own. So anyway, all right. Well, I think it's about time to get up and go on. I still want to watch some more college hoops for another month, about another month, and I'm excited for it, but it's a lot.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Anyway, last thing we got. There's a couple of collabs I'm working on for either Sunday or Monday. So
sweet.
Look to get another college hoops voice in here. Anyway,
sweet.
For Andrew Miller, Shane Black, Welcome Horn Show. That's pretty much it. Welcome.